On various media platforms, there have been commotions on the recent global currency war. Although it peaked in early October last year, this battle of currencies is still ongoing and is of great impact on our various economies. It is important as an economic student to be able to comprehend the significance of this brewing war, because this economic impact entails both the micro and macroeconomics aspects, and therefore not just affect our country, but individuals within which as well. Furthermore, countries are seen to be quick in mapping out policies to avert this phenomenon. It would be interesting for us to be able to understand the world around us better, and through their reactions, be able to gain more insights into the key economic concepts involved.
You gonna sit here?
Okay, start already.
Okay, one of the key economics aspects, one of the key economics concepts is
Beggar thy neighbor. So what is beggar thy neighbor? Oh, let us look at a 15-minute crash course to know more about it. But before the presentation, we're gonna do a self-introduction. This is Xingxia.
This is Wu Jin. Where's Qianyi? Where's Qianyi? Oh, this is Qianyi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and you're from 1036.
Yay!
Oh, okay, thanks. Hey, must you smile in the camera?
Oh, 我是自由的。Don't you speak up? Hi.
Hey, why you didn't look? Oh my god. Beggar thy neighbor, the big word involved in our recent headlines. It describes a policy that seeks to benefit one country through its attempt to remedy one's economic situation, but at the same time, it worsens the situation of other countries.
What is the relevance of currency war?
This battle is inevitable in this globalized world where the economic dimension is heavily emphasized on. Globalization is one phenomenon and process that entails change. It integrates economics into one whole global system, where internationally diverse activities are bundled into one. This deepening and widening of interconnectedness allows huge volumes of cross-border transactions, free flows of goods, services, and capital. With this shrinkage of world economies, then comes the onset of relaxed trade agreements, improved communications, and earnest outsourcing efforts. All in all, economies are now interlinked, and when a step is taken, it affects the global economy. Economies now got to outreach each other. Furthermore, currency interventions are pertinent in this era of global deficit demand, as efforts for countries to get back from their feet after the 2008 global financial crisis.
Can you introduce when and how the currency war happened?
Unlike real wars, currency wars do not have defined start dates, but they can be ended with something like the peace treaty just like the 1936 Tripartite Agreement between Britain, France, and US to address the issues to currency imbalance. In this recent currency war, countries have, in fact, been involved in the devaluation of their currencies after the 2008 global recession. However, this currency battle is believed to have occurred in March this year. According to the Straits Times, Brazil Finance Minister Guido Mantega first declared a currency war after Japan dipped its hand in the market for the first time in 6 years to weaken the yen, so as to get rid of Mantega, what the Japanese described as the phenomenon of the surging yen. These efforts led the media's attention on the long-standing tensions between the Western nations and China over the latest monetary policy, which many say has kept the yuan artificially low.
Tell us more about the US stand.
The US Republicans in Congress blamed China's undervalued yuan for its woes. US economic recovery has hit a wall, with unemployment approaching 10% with the US housing market still sliding. As such, the Senate passes a legislation saying that China is a currency manipulator and has to raise the value of yuan, which was undervalued by 25%, making Chinese exports artificially competitive. Furthermore, the undervalued yuan has also caused US to have a trade deficit, and this deficit actually peaked to a whopping $26.2 billion in June 2010 before it fell to $25.9 billion in July 2010.
Tell us more about the underlying motive.
Our group feels that such legislation is a signal-signing exercise during election season for US. The currency war, in the eyes of US, is in fact one of a more political than an economic condition. It would not solve problems, but escalate tensions and direct attention from the real trade problem between US and China. Furthermore, this US bill seems to show that it's an open season for addressing currency manipulation and a boomerang effect to set off from this legislation as the US is in fact manipulating our currencies.
Tell us more about what China has done.
China has actually been revaluing its currency nearly 20% between 2005 and 2008, and now nearly 3% since June when the government had resumed the revaluing policy, having shelved it aside during the midst of the global financial crisis. In early November this year, the yuan has again strengthened about 0.7% against the US dollar, its biggest 3-day advance since the currency peg ended in July 2005. To add on, the yuan has also been appreciated at the end of December 2010 after the China Central Bank adjusted its interest rates by 0.25 percentage points. However, the Western economies feel that China is not appreciating enough, giving rise to a series of debates.
How did the US join the war officially?
In a desperate ride to jumpstart her stalled economy, US became the first country to jump onto the bandwagon and start printing money through the process of quantitative easing 2, QE2. QE2 refers to the second package of quantitative easing that the Federal Reserve announced in November this year. QE2 involved the purchase of an additional US $600 billion of treasury bonds with a newly printed US dollars. With this done, it is believed that more money would go into people's pockets, boosting their purchasing power for goods and services, and hence stimulating higher consumer demand and business investments, thereby creating jobs to solve her woes.
I heard that more countries were forced to devalue their currency. Is it true?
All this series of policies made up by superpowers in a bid to devalue their currencies has caused other countries who are not among the former and prefer not to copy the latter to find their currency soaring, especially when many other countries start to devalue their currencies at the same time. These countries that were on the fence, like Brazil, fear the result and are hence forced to join in the currency battle to prevent their fears. Like aforementioned, a currency war is a zero-sum game. If you do not join in, you lose. This mentality has caused this currency war to deteriorate, giving rise to various consequences worth looking at.
Introduce us to the consequences of the currency war.
Globally, the consequences of the recent currency war are extensive. Is it truly a zero-sum game? Are there real winners when it comes to a war? From our study of the currency war, we see that the positive consequences are major in number, and the negative repercussions are, on the other hand, very overwhelming. It's spreading like a toxic algae, very viral, and it is crucial that we examine the situation in order to devise ways to bring our economies back from the cold. For Singapore, did the currency war do us any good, or are we at the mercy of this battle? Let us have a closer look.
Tell us more about the impacts on Singapore.
Economically, the consequences of the currency war can be subdivided into the micro and macro level. Within the macro level, it encompasses the internal and external economy. The issues of price stability, economic growth, and employment makes up the former, and that of the exchange rates and balance of payments made up the latter.
What about cost-push inflation?
Singapore is a small and resource-poor country, making her of great dependence on international trade for the imports of her basic commodities. This reliance makes her highly vulnerable to external shocks. Furthermore, with a focus on the tertiary sector of the economy, like the biopolis, the agricultural sector is highly neglected, and she thus does not have that self-sufficiency for food, and she actually imports 90% of her food. Worldwide, there has been a major surge in the prices of many commodities, with the prices of food stocks like wheat being raised by 30% and that of corn by 50%. The gradual appreciation of the Chinese yuan during the currency war can be blamed for this, since she is the top 3 trading partners of Singapore and is the largest world producer of food commodities like wheat. When the Chinese yuan appreciates, price of imports falls and that of export rise, thereby inflating the prices of Chinese export products. When we import our much needed raw materials from China, this inflation is passed on to our country in the form of import price push inflation, a form of cost push inflation. Furthermore, imported inflation is not just the prices of intermediate products or raw materials, but also the prices of final products. In all, with the rise of the yuan, Singapore is adversely affected with cost push inflation. Of $1 spent here, 54 cents goes to imports.